John Keister, a comedian and writer, is also a University of Washington alum. He hosted such projects like the local comedy program Almost Live and continued with other endeavors such as the John Report. He is currently an instructor at the Seattle Art Institute and the head writer of BizKids, a nationally broadcast television show. John decided early on that he wanted to be a writer. At the end of the Vietnam War, he joined the Daily and became the editor-in-chief. For this interview, John met up with us at the Daily to revisit his days as a journalist.
I had decided really early on that I wanted to be a writer. And I thought when I came out of high school that, you can't teach someone how to be a writer, you just write. But I was unbelievably lucky. The people who were in this very room, the journalists were probably some of the best.
After working with journalists that later became Pulitzer Prize winners and novelists, Keister tells us how he found his voice and interests after working at the Daily.
When I came in, I realized I liked journalism better than I liked writing fiction. I liked the immediacy of it. And then when I got into television, I really found my voice on television, but it was because I took the first step into journalism that I got finally into where I was supposed to be.
John Keister entered the University of Washington at a time when feminism was on the rise. He tells us what he used to write about as a journalist in an era of change.
I wrote more about just sort of cultural things that were going on, the different roles between men and women. I mean, this was just the beginning of the feminist movement when I was at the UW, and the world is a fundamentally different place than it was 30 years ago because of that movement. So I wrote about kind of changing trends and things like that. What I found after I graduated from the Daily is most publications, with the exception of things like the New York Times or whatever, are pretty timid about going after people, because they're afraid of some sort of legal background. But essentially, what I learned here was that you don't really have to be that timid.
After college, John joined a newly founded magazine, The Rocket. He spent a few years interviewing rock bands, which eventually led him to working for King TV to do weekly wrap-ups of the music scene. Shortly after, he joined the cast of Almost Live and later became the host. Working at the Daily helped him with this path.
Being associated with the Daily was what completely set me on my path later in life. Absolutely, it was without a doubt the most important decision I ever made was to answer the ad that was in the day. Hey, we're looking for writers, and I thought, well, I can write for this paper. Sure, I could do that.
John reflects on the friendships and memories he made at the Daily.
There was a lot of great memories, but I would say, in general, it was that I made the best friends that I ever met. They're still my best friends to this day, 30 years later. My best memory is just working on the stories with my friends. We thought that we were doing something very important. And because we were doing it together, we were sort of egging each other on. We're like, we were cheering each other on. And I don't think I've rarely had that kind of a feeling for the rest of my life.
Working at the Daily was a helpful and fun tool for John and other writers of his time. When giving advice to aspiring writers, the first rule he says is, write what you know.